and say, the person who you're meeting with, they already know that your client, right, who is their brother or sister, whoever, who named this person as the beneficiary or the emergency contact, they already know that your client has already trusted you with their social, their bank account, everything. So already you have some leverage right there, right? So when you go in, you're going in with a trust factor. Just it's not just credibility; it's a lot of trust right there. And remember, when you go in, you're creating a difference between you, a separation between you and other companies. And it's not just insurance. I also go for investment emergency contacts too, right? So if I'm doing a follow-up with a client and I know in the beginning I didn't get the contacts like I should have, right, in the life insurance close, then I'll go back and get it on the investment close. And sometimes people have different beneficiaries for investments than they do insurance, by the way. So you can play it however you want, but this person, they should be thinking, wow, this, after you meet with them, wow, this is amazing. I want this, right? Why didn't my company do this for me, right? I don't understand why my company didn't think about doing this. This is important because how many people pass away and their family's left scrambling for paperwork and doesn't even know what companies to call because there's like hundreds of companies out there, right? And you guys already know if somebody can't locate their 401k money, like Sheila was talking about on Saturday, you got to call like maybe 3-4 companies, but imagine how many insurance companies are out there. So it's a lot more serious of a issue. It's a real issue. So anyways, everybody some people have different preferences on how many emergency contacts. I usually ask for 2 to 3 emergency contacts and the two beneficiaries, because some people have 2 beneficiaries. If they have a spouse, right, and you already are meeting with both the spouses, you definitely want to get emergency contacts from each spouse so you can kind of double up there. That's a good idea there. And if they are the type of person where I have a lot of single parents and they want to name only their kids as beneficiaries, right? So I want to be able to meet with an adult. So if they really, really insist on not putting an adult as a beneficiary, then I'll ask them, you know, who would be a great emergency contact, 2 or 3 emergency contacts that has a good head on their shoulders. You think you would want to influence your child in making decisions with this money. They can't touch the money, but we need somebody to help your child when they're 18, God forbid you pass prematurely, to be able to influence them properly. And I need to meet with them, right? And it makes sense, doesn't it, guys? Yeah. Now, if you can get them to name an adult beneficiary, this is what I say. I say, hey, you know, typically we don't recommend sole beneficiaries as kids or children, minors, because if you pass away before they're an adult, they have to wait until they're 18 to even be taken care of with this money. And that's the point of this, right? So I highly recommend we name a smaller percentage, and you don't want to name all the percentage towards the adult, but something where the adult can have something to not just take care of final expenses, which is guaranteed to have to be taken care of, but something to be able to feed your children and take care of them for the time being until they're 18. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that sometimes, a lot of times that works, you know, 90% of the time, and then I can get a beneficiary from there. I don't need to tell the beneficiary they have 20%, 30%, or anything like that, honestly. They just know they are part beneficiary, and that's it. But I want to have the client call or text right away to introduce me. So it does take some more time for them to curate that text. So, but I'll just tell them, hey, I need you to text your, you know, emergency contact, your beneficiary, that would put them down. A lot of times when I used to do this and have them text or call the person, it was when we were doing in-person appointments. But now on Zoom, sometimes people are meeting you on their phone, so they're not going to be able to call right away, right? And introduce you right away, like on the spot, real time. So I just have them text. And a lot of times they do it anyways, but they may not put you in a 3-way text. So that's how I get introduced. And if I miss them, I'll just leave them a voicemail, of course. But you can guys ignore the certificate because I don't think we do that anymore. I don't do it anymore. I just meet with the person. And then I want to, when I go over with the client, with the client's beneficiary, the structure that I have is very systematic, where first I want to put education up front, where I'm not directly educating them, or so they think, right? I'm using the client that referred them, right, as a reason to go over the education, because they need to know how strong our company is. But set the appointment to go over the details and the benefits, and then you want to find out that person's income protection situation after you're done with everything. But then you want to close, see if you can recruit them. I used to not meet with I used to not want to meet with emergency contacts or beneficiaries that were not quote unquote qualified, 4 to 5 pointers, which is what we generally want because they even make better recruits anyways. But you can recruit somebody's son or daughter, by the way. That I've done that before. And they've opened up a whole new market just from that. So remember, you can recruit the person, and recruits are more valuable anyways than just the client because they can reach them more. So where's the clicker? So this is a general script, and some of this stuff I probably have typos on here. Okay, so just excuse me. But when I meet with them, I want to reiterate why we're meeting. Okay, so hey, Samir, right? Before we get started, do you remember why we're meeting today?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. Just to reiterate, typically in the financial industry, proceeds don't get paid to beneficiaries. That's quick because the beneficiary doesn't know there's a policy in place, doesn't know who to call, maybe just forgets who the company name is or needs help with the process, emotionally and strategically. So you were named as a emergency contact to IRM for Shaquille in case either one of them passes away and the beneficiary or the other person is not in the state of mind to handle any proceeds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Shaquille said you were pretty responsible to be able to help Aaron or the other person with anything. So you guys can take care of any final expenses as he wishes it to be taken care of. Make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to go over what Shaq and Miriam have, but first let me just go over why they picked us so you understand the quality of our service. So God forbid it comes time for you to meet with me, then we know what to do. So I'm going to share my screen, right? So sharing the screen, and when I share my screen, I share the whiteboard, by the way, because I'm not going to go over the PowerPoint presentation. I've done that before, but clients are like, hey, like, is this like for me or, but there's an element to writing. I don't know. I forgot what it's called. Shaq said it one time, but when you like all of a sudden pull out paper, you start writing out the presentation. For some reason, people just pay more attention and they're more receptive to it. That's it. I forgot what it's called, but I'm going to share my screen. So Shaquille is a pretty intelligent person, and Iram is too. So they're hardworking people as well. So before they decided on this, they already knew they could have had life insurance through their job. But unfortunately, through doing some research on their own, they found out that through their job, any job, they were not the policy owner, which means the employer they work for or anybody they work for can change anything without their consent. And now that's a big issue, isn't it, Samir?
Yep.
Yep. So exactly. And they found out that's why it was so cheap through the job because it hardly ever pays out since anything could be changed without their consent. Can you see why they decided not to depend on their job insurance to take care of each other?
Yes.
Because when it comes to you and your family, you would never want to take any risk, would you?
No.
Right. So that's killing group insurance right there. You're just going off of the client's credibility. That's it. Right. And to some extent, I'm creating a fear of missing out, right? Type of feeling. Because I'm saying, oh, your brother did it, your best friend did it. Like, they know this and they're like, man, they know this, why don't I, right? Right? So, yeah, so when I draw this, just so that you guys can understand the whiteboard. So I'll just put group insurance. When I'm talking, I just write this out and then I just put an X right here. That's all. It's very simple, right? I'm not doing a whole bunch of writing. But then I erase my whiteboard and then I go over term. And then I put a line and I put cash value. That's all, okay? That's it. So when they found out that they could have get private insurance, they had 2 different options they could choose from, term or cash value. And cash value is typically known as whole life or universal life, Samir. Have you ever heard those names before? Term, whole life, universal. Okay, awesome. Well, as you may or may not know, like Shaq and Aaron found out, term was just insurance, right? That's insurance. And whereas cash value and whole life or universal life combined is combined insurance and cash value. So, and when a lot of life insurance agents were trying to sign them up for life insurance, they were trying to offer and push the cash value, the most expensive one, and they were trying to figure out why. So they did their own research again, and because you can see it's already not apples to apples if you compare only one thing to two, right? So then they're like, oh yeah. So when you draw out insurance versus insurance and cash value, right? And once they agree with you, they can't really, you're taking out the fact that the insurance agent, if they have one, was trying to compare term to whole life, by the way, right? I'm already overcoming that before it comes up. So Jack and Aaron figured out the extra money they would have paid for a more expensive policy went to this cash value bucket that was supposed to be their savings, but in the first that's supposed to say 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, they would lose most, if not all of their money in the first 3 to 5 years. Then that's pretty crazy, but makes sense why they didn't like that, right, Samir?
Yep.
And then after 3 to 5 years, after accumulating any money, they found out that they had to borrow any money in there, but that money is their money, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And usually when you borrow anything, they found out they had to pay compounding interest on it to the insurance company. You can see why they didn't like that either, right?
Right.
So then as I'm talking, I draw this out, right? Plus interest. Now, number 3, they also found out that unfortunately the insurance company would keep all the extra money they paid into the savings and only pay the insurance to the other spouse. So basically, they didn't like the idea of paying for a pair of shoes and only getting one shoe in the shoebox. Can you see why they didn't? Why? Can you see why they didn't decide to go with whole life or universal?
Mm-hmm.
I got that from somebody. I didn't make it up, guys. Okay. Yeah. So Shaq and Aaron found out about third-party public financial advisors like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Have you heard about them? Okay, so they love the fact that we taught the same things Dave and Susie Orman did, like buy term, invest the difference when it comes to a financial plan. So what this means is that they have a term policy with us and they invest the difference they would have lost, right? Into a cash value policy. So they have an option to go get a term too from a company that offer cash value. Being as intelligent as they are, though, do you think they would really get a term policy and purposely do business with a company that was trying to take advantage of them with a cash value policy? Right, exactly. That's why they wanted to separate the two things and do business with us. So this is who we are. So at this point, I'm not talking slower, for you guys, so I could go through the script. But at this point, now I'm going to pull up the wheel of companies that we partner with to create more credibility, right? Because if they haven't heard about our company, or if they have and they don't know everything, everything that we do, it's not just an opportunity to get more business, but you just want to create more credibility, and that's it. So this is who we are and what they have. So our company is Primerica. Have you heard of us before? Okay, so this is our logo. So you have some name recognition, just in case you lose my contact information for whatever reason, you know which company to contact. But I'm also going to email you a copy of my information after we're done here. Does that make sense? Sound fair? Cool. So do you see any companies we partner with that you might recognize?
Yeah.
Great. So anyways, that's our company. I don't do anything more than that. I just show the snapshot. And as you may hear about our company more that you see us, you'll find out that your mother, this is supposed to say client, but Shaq and Aaron, that did. So as you may hear about our company more, what did I put down here? As you may hear about our company more than you see us, you'll find out that Shaq and Aaron, right, that we were one of 3 companies that paid out during 9/11. Remember when the planes crashed? Exactly. Out of 200, roughly 200 companies that existed, we were one of 3 that paid out. Isn't that crazy? But also last year, or 2020, with many COVID cases taking a lot of people's lives, companies were saying, oh, we don't cover COVID because that doesn't exist. When we wrote the policy on your loved one. Isn't that crazy for a life insurance company to say too? So I usually would pull the COVID article. This is prior to us putting it in the presentation, right? And sometimes depending on, I always have it pulled up no matter what though. just in case they're kind of anal, they're kind of like closed, you know what I mean? I need to show it a little bit, right? There's a lot of technical people out there. If they don't see it, they're not going to believe it. So, but it's cool because it has a list of all the companies and primary on the list. So I pulled the COVID article, so we don't do that. We don't have any of those exemptions in our policy that other companies do. But if it got so bad last year that in January 2021, January 2021, that year Yahoo Finance had to come up with a third-party article titled 7 Licensure is likely to overcome COVID challenges, meaning willing and able to pay. And as you can see, we are one of the 7 listed out of 200 that exist. Isn't that awesome? You can see why they chose us, right? Yep. So then I transition over to the whiteboard again. And I just draw out a general 35-year term, right? And I just give general benefits like waiver premium, terminal illness, and then sell on me, right? The agent. Because we make the difference between the beneficiary's payout process experience compared to other companies. We're the difference. So this is the company that, God forbid, you'll be having a call if something happens to Shaq and Ira. They have, and then I draw out X amount of coverage. Now, depending on if it's an emergency contract or a beneficiary, if it's a beneficiary, I'll probably draw out the numbers, right? But with the emergency contract, I just say they have a term with us, right? Worth enough to cover 10 years of expenses or 10 years, or until the youngest child is 18 years old. So it depends on how your client does. Sometimes they don't want disclosures and stuff like that. But let's say they have 100,000 to cover. So if something happens to them, then you would receive the money, or Ira will receive the money to make sure that they're taken care of. Now, her term is going to be 35 years. Their term is going to be 35 years because, again, we set up an investment for them. So in the next 35 years, they'll have money saved up worth more than 100K or whatever K. And when she does pay pass later on, God forbid, you don't care where the money comes from, or the spouse doesn't care where the money comes from, as long as they have the money to take care of whatever they need to take care of. Does that make sense? So with us, we have the best term in the industry because we're the only financial company when it comes to insurance that only offers terms. So these are some of our benefits they have. They may not remember it if this happens, Samir, but I need you to at least have some type of knowledge about this, okay? Terminal illness. High case of COVID, right? Because that's terminal, by the way, right? And I learned this from Matt. He said that doctors' letters, numbers are very arbitrary. So you could really get the doctor to write anything. And doctors make money on medical expenses, by the way, anyways. So of course they're going to have a incentive to write it. But terminal illness rider, cancer, COVID, high case of COVID, but definitely cancer, anything that's terminal illness, they can pull out 70% of their 100K. So that is $70,000 that she can take out to pay for the best medical procedures. Hopefully they don't need that, but sometimes the difference between living and dying is money, isn't it? And then waiver premium. So if our client gets disabled for 6 months or longer, then we'll pay back 6 months or more of the premium back to them, but continue to keep them covered. So no matter what, they'll still be covered, and you can always call us. But in 3, our renewal rates are the best, but they already have an investment set up, so they won't need that to renew. But then the last benefit is me, because the way, and then I share the client story. So that's the protection. So then I talk about my client story. So all I do is just write the timeline. And I say, the reason why we make a difference for Shaq and Iram and other beneficiaries out there of our clients is because of, I'll tell you a story. One of my clients named Reggie, he became a client in July 2017, with him and his wife. And in October, they separated to divorce. In November, we quickly changed the beneficiary for him and immediately met with his new beneficiary, Barbara, his 37-year-old daughter. And that was a 10, 15, 20-minute meeting like I'm doing with you right now, just to go over the benefits, and I left. The very next month in December, her father passed away of a heart attack on the job. Within 2 hours, she called my cell phone. Within 4 hours, I was at the house with the paperwork. I don't know if you ever lost anybody, Samir, but it takes about 10 business days for the paperwork to come in the mail after you find the company to put the claim in for. right? So not only that, but when we paid out, we hand delivered the check of $100,000. And she was able to use that money to purchase a house and put down for her child's 6-year-old college education. At 18, she'll be paid for college. That's a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the story. You guys can take that. And this was done within less than 6 months of him being, he was a client for less than 6 months. We paid out no questions asked. If you do the math. And my vice president, and sometimes I go further, if I feel like it, but I'll say my vice president who's already retired, he came with me to deliver that in hand. Who else is going to do a service like that? All right.
Of all the beneficiary referral contacts, how many of them actually do you get?
It's a
in a good month, you get 20 of these. How many sit down?
like 80%. If I'm doing, it's much more than the 50% ratio. And that's only if the client, obviously introduced you and you didn't just set it based on the name, right?
These are the most appointments you have in a month. You think these types of-
If I did mostly beneficiary and emergency appointments, like the ratio will be a lot higher of my total appointments,
So what you've done here is it's an alternative to an appointment.
Mhm.
Okay, and you have a very, obviously, because when you do things a long time, then, she has every word for everything, right? But if we summarize this, really what you did an appointment in a different way. So
Mhm.
you got 2 beneficiaries, you got 3 emergency contacts, then you call them with a script and you say, I just want to show you why she chose us. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. This is why she chose us. Have you heard of these different types of insurances? And essentially what you did was you showed her the difference between term and cash value in your own way,
Yeah.
right? People may have a different way to do that, but you did it a really good way. And then once you went on from there, you showed the Primerica wheel to introduce our company. Then you went over the client's plan. This is what I set up for them. And that's basically an
Yeah.
appointment in itself where
Yeah.
now you can see if they're interested.
And then this is going to lead into the income protection definition that you actually created.
Mhm.
And so this leads into the question of,
Just so everyone knows what's going on here. It's an appointment, but you just don't want to come across with the slides and everything like it's an appointment.
Yeah.
So you just shorthanded the appointment, meaning you wrote it all out.
Yeah.
Would you ever have you ever got any issues like sharing their exactly what they did, like the amount they got and the investment what they did? Like, do you ever have a problem with that?
I don't show the account, I don't pull up
Well,
the
if the
account.
person listed that person as a beneficiary, then the assumption is there is some, assumption of sharing information there.
And the client, I tell the client I'm going to set an appointment up just so that they know me and they know the company, because it's important, right, to us and to you that they know who we are and how our process works.
He's just saying the disclosure of their actual stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I will tell the client,
And the client doesn't get weirded out.
Yeah, because I have like clients that.
Well, a lot of stuff like that comes down to discretion, right?
Yeah.
What clients don't care or aren't even listening. They're just
Yeah.
following your instructions, which is the majority of people. And in here, I think that I probably have, in terms of sophistication of clients, I have a lot,
Mhm.
right? So I can just tell, and it has nothing to do with how much money they make. Some people are very small clients, but they're super high strung about this stuff. Some people have a lot of money. They could care less about what's shared or what's said. So that stuff comes to your own discretion, right?
Mhm.
So if a client, they wouldn't like it, but Jen said in the script, that's what you would say. Obviously, you wouldn't do it because you're using your discretion.
Mhm.
That's how you want to look at it.
And earlier I did mention that sometimes I don't put the amount that they have, I'll give like an example. I'll say, hey, I'm not going to say what they have exactly just for purposes of privacy and confidentiality, but let's pretend that they have 200,000, right? I just throw a number out there and do this right here. So if something were to happen to Shaq or Ira, we'll have to kind of check. Let's say, for example, Samir of 200,000 and Shaq or Ira, whoever the other spouse is, can do whatever they want with the money, but we would try to help them invest it at a 6 to 8% conservative rate, so that every single month they can pull out 2,000 a month out of this 200,000. this is called principal preservation. We want to stretch the money out for as long as possible. And I actually do this on the Zoom. I say stretch the money out, right? Visuals. I got that from Samir. So this is called principal preservation. We want to stretch the money out for as long as possible because what usually happens to a lump sum amount of money you get, you're not prepared for. Exactly. So this way we want to make sure the money lasts for as long as possible. This is what we call income protection as well. Because car insurance brings back your car, home insurance brings back your belongings, but life insurance doesn't bring back your life, does it? And so anybody with an income independence needs to protect that income like them. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Beneficiary or Mr. Emergency Contact? No, this is awesome. So sometimes the person you're presenting to, they'll say, I think I'm interested in my own plan. I get that a lot, right? But you got to set it and let them know it's going to be about 15 minutes more or less, depending on if you have questions, right? So when you're going through everything, they're not stopping you in the middle, like, hey, how long is this going to take, right? So I already told them up front when I said it, it's going to be about 15 minutes, more or less, depending on if you have questions or, you know, if this makes sense or it doesn't make sense. That's all.
When you finish, and you say they're interested, just go right to the application, or you explain what else you explain?
I will honestly ask for permission to go longer.
Okay.
Because they only are meeting for Shaq and Euro, right? Like Samir's only meeting for Shaq and Euro. And if you look at the type of person Samir is, he's a busy person. So I need to ask permission first, because even if he says, hey, I'm kind of interested in my own plan, right? Okay. But sometimes I'll have to ask first. Let me just say this. You know, since you are a really important emergency contact, I would hate to leave here and Shaq and Euro, they're gonna wonder why I didn't ask you who does your income protection, who handles your income protection. So who handles your income protection, if I may ask? So that they're taking care of in case something happens to you.
So you say yes, just do the application, what you
And
exactly
then-
you show?
Yeah, so if they give me permission to go further, or we have to set up a second appointment, I'll just go over the theory of decreasing responsibility and collect data from there. Mhm. Yeah, and then I'll just, everything else will be straightforward, and then I'll collect referrals, just like, what from theory? Yeah, that's where I kick it off, and I'll just ask, has anybody helped you calculate the amount of coverage you need? And then from the theory, you're gonna find out if they have more kids than you thought, right? Or maybe the kids are not young like you thought, right? They're a lot older. And you know, yeah, the process is still the same from the QA presentation. Just